Hello, game passionate nerd here, and in this video I want to explore beautiful worlds of gaming and discover which world between Wuthering Waves and Arknights Endfield has better gameplay. Just remember, no one has a right to dictate what media you should consume for your entertainment or how you should consume it. I make this video mainly to answer my own question of what gameplay function do open worlds serve in gacha games. And I'll start right after we get ourselves out of our precarious situation.
Hey, you! Finally awake.
No, this is not a joke. In order to discuss worlds of WuWa and AKE, we need to talk about Skyrim, just a little bit. Right after finishing the tutorial, we are greeted by this game's world with all its glory, and are given quest to reach a small village nearby. But what are these markers? I for one find it intriguing, so let's find out. At the destination we find a mine and go in. Its inside greets us with some lore notes, enemies, loot and other interactions. So far so good. Pretty similar experience to the one we have in WuWa or AKE. Later we are surrounded by markers and we get a gist of what they mean, but the intrigue still remains. You can for example come across this place. Marker tells us it's just a cave, but when we go inside we discover it is quite odd. After dispatching animals and spriggans guarding this place, we find this shrine with a note and a unique weapon. That's not just a one-off or two-off. Skyrim's world is more or less filled with one-of-a-kind encounters, many of which offer us different kinds of rewards or questlines, and we as players have no idea of knowing this until we go and find them. I assume that by now you get the point I want to make. To explore is to search for the unknown for the purpose of discovery, and since it's in a game, we also often want some kind of reward for doing so. By analyzing Skyrim and other exploration-focused games, we can come up with criteria by which we could judge open worlds of Wuthering Waves and Arknights Endfield. And those I think should be Upfront Knowledge, Fun of Discovery, and Value of Rewards. Upfront Knowledge plays the most important part in exploration in my opinion. If we already know what to get and where to get it, the activity is no longer an exploration, but a fetch quest. This is most prominent in MMOs, where NPCs tell us to go gather specific items in specific location for a specific reward. The player is given all the information they could ever want up front, and because of this, there is nothing for them left to discover. On the other hand, if a player doesn't know that there is something to explore, they just won't realize that they can even do that, so they are missing out on game's content. Therefore, I think upfront knowledge is the best when it's low enough to conceal details from us and keep us guessing, but also high enough that the player is aware of exploration's potential. This is, I believe, why Skyrim markers only appear when you're close to them, and they have no further explanation. They basically say, hey buddy, there is something of this type here. What exactly? Well, why don't you come over and find out yourself? And we mostly get markers to the entrances of these dungeons. Whatever we find inside of them, we need to look for with our own eyes. The fun of discovery are all the different activities and puzzles we complete to make progress in the world. This is unique from game to game and tied to its common mechanics like movement and all kinds of object manipulations. Fun itself is a largely subjective concept, but if you'd like to hear more about it, you can check out my take on theory of fun in game design in my previous video. While the fun of discovery is kinda subjective, value of rewards is pretty clear, almost as important as upfront knowledge and somewhat tied to it. We do get a lot of common loot in Skyrim like gold and gems, but we also get a unique reward in almost every exploration instance. Even if that very first mine, we came upon the enchanted pair of gloves we can use or disenchant, and later in the animal cave we got ourselves a similar artifact but a weapon. The fact that these rewards are unique and possibly useful gives them value. It keeps us guessing what else could be out there and thus motivates us to explore more. So now, having our criteria presented, let's finally apply them to our gachas. First, upfront knowledge. In Wuthering Waves it's pretty much maxed out, and while it could look like a good thing on a graph, I think it's catastrophic. WuWa gives us many powerful tools to know and get whatever we want fast and easy. When given such tools, we don't have to search for anything, which robs us of the intrigue and the pleasure of discovering things ourselves. The game just leads us by hand to our destination as if we are lost children. It makes us tunnel vision on the markers and take our eyes off the actual world in which the markers are placed. In Arknights Endfield, I'd say the locations of rewards are sufficiently hidden. Yes, we can use items to reveal them, but they show up only one thing at a time, instead of an entire set. And additionally, players are unlikely to use currency for buying these when a new area releases, as they are more important purchases to make. AKE also shows us that there are things to be found as it places some of them alongside main roads. We are free to actually use our eyes to search for loot ourselves, instead of being dragged to it by markers. This means that upfront knowledge of AKE lies somewhere in the middle, exactly where it should be. The fun of discovery is interesting to discuss as the worlds of WuWa and AKE are quite different, and fun is very vague. In this section I will focus on depth of movement and how we as players interact with the world. Arknights Endfield is quite tricky with this actually. It doesn't have any vehicles, wall climbing, not even a double jump. Despite that, it does utilize verticality in form of rocks, cliffs, gorges, etc. as organic barriers. These elements of the world are given thought of how they impact player movement. In most cases we have to go around and scale them from the other side, or maybe find a tunnel that leads us through the cliff. Some rewards require us parkour a little to get them, or interact with the world in other ways to create a path. Then we can unlock a zipline which acts as a shortcut, or we can even construct ziplines ourselves to create custom travel points over gorges and rivers. This means, I think, that the world is designed with player movement in mind, and the very environment serves as kind of traversal puzzle. In Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, we're given literal flight or a bike to travel Overworld, and while it's extremely powerful and convenient, I'd argue it's also very boring. Even without vehicles, players can scale steepest of walls with relative ease, which almost entirely removes verticality from design as a gameplay factor. My take is that the overworld movement options in WuWa are too powerful to create interesting gameplay, and the way Wuthering Waves story instances are designed can mean that Kuro Games agrees with my argument. Most of us realize that story instances disable our glider, don't allow wall running, or otherwise restrict our movement. Wuthering Waves needs to impose those limits to make environments stand out, engage us with puzzles, and prevents us from simply flying over everything. This is why Kuro Games, when they want us to actually engage with their level design, they make us move, like in Arknights Endfield. At the same time, the overworld needs to have these overpowered vehicles, otherwise we would have to run kilometers between destinations, and simply commuting is not a fun thing to do in a video game. The traversal is bricked, but the overworld puzzles aren't much better. For example, since 3.0, all we need to do for chests is zipline through the gate and hover over some icons to collect them. How riveting. There are some activities for rewards, but am I playing Wuthering Waves right now? And how does this make use of the world in any way? And why many of those activities that do involve the world happen to be in the air or additional roads? Why didn't they design the world to accommodate these activities or vice versa? This makes me believe that gameplay experience in the overworld is an afterthought for Kuro Games, a far second to its visual grandeur. Somehow Wuthering Waves manages to combine the worst of two worlds. Zones so inflated that they need equally ridiculous traversal methods in order to shrink them again, and most overworld activities so separated that they have almost nothing to do not only with the world, but with Wuthering Waves as a game. In my opinion, Arknights Endfield world is more fun to traverse and discover things in, because you actually interact with the world, while Wuthering Waves just places interactions in its world, but they aren't really a part of it. Lastly, the value of rewards, and this one is basically a tie. Both WuWa and AKE don't offer any unique rewards, just your regular gacha stuff. So here we have it, folks. The Wuthering Waves vs Arknights Endfield Round 1 exploration gameplay is ready to address the elephants in the room. Is Skyrim even a good game to source our criteria from? Skyrim is a single-player ARPG with world free to explore at player's own pace. WuWa and AKE are gachas, and while they are called ARPGs, nobody expects them to have experiences comparable to Skyrim. And I'd say this is exactly why we should compare them. All three of these games are claimed to be ARPGs, all three have open worlds with rewards scattered across them. Why then are their experiences so different? In Skyrim, open world is a crucial part of the game's experience. Our playthroughs will change if we choose to go in different places in different order, because we'll get different items and meet different NPCs in different order, and then we'll do even more things differently. In gachas, this cannot be the case. We cannot get different items through exploration, because unique weapons and characters have to be gambled for through monetization. We cannot meet different NPCs in different parts of the world, as they are introduced linearly through the story, which also acts as an advertisement to pull for them. There is only one direction in which players can progress in the world, which is set by the story, which itself is mandated by gacha. Ways in which the world can be part of game's experience is bottlenecked by its monetization. This puts our WuWa vs AKE comparison in quite a different light. Instead of being seen as a core gameplay experience, in gacha, open world can be seen as an obstacle to overcome as fast as possible to get pull currency and pull on the current banner. If that's the case, isn't the way WuWa does it actually better? Why bother to search if we will never get anything special anyway? Why not streamline the commute and puzzles as much as possible? Why not reduce the obstacles and required effort to zero? We don't want to work for our currency, right? Why would we want to engage in this game's beautiful world?
Once you're out of the gorge, there's only a short walk to reach Jinzhou.
Wuthering Waves did actually try that before. In 1.0 we had a giant, actually interactable world area.
Cherish every gain.
But exploration in gachas is fundamentally flawed. It just doesn't feel good to rove around too big of a world and rattle our brain cases only to get fourth of a pool instead of a cool unique item that we can actually use. And a gacha game cannot just give us a cool unique item, no, that would be silly, we have to pull for it. Later patches of WuWa came and we gave feedback that we wanted a better exploration experience. And Kuro Games listened. They rightfully didn't want to hurt their income by giving out freebies as merely exploration rewards, so instead of increasing rewards to match the required effort, they reduced the required effort to match negligible rewards.
哇，这么多全新区域，探索起来一定很过瘾。不过感觉每个地方的距离都很远，还有很多纵深很高的地方，不知道到时候跑图起来会不会很折磨啊？
不知道到时候跑图起来会不会很折磨啊？
同时，基于丰富的生孩之国玩法，地图与探索度也进行了进一步的便捷性优化。
地图与探索度也进行了进一步的便捷性优化。
And so we are left with an illusion of player and world interaction, an exploration in name, but in reality, a fetch quest. Arknights Endfield still has some of the interactive overworld design, so for now it wins me over, but I am worried for its future, because the effort to reward ratio just doesn't feel good in AKE as well. I think that meaningful overworld exploration is next to impossible to do in gacha games. It requires engagement requires friction, and friction can be frustrating. And because it can be frustrating, it can be seen as an obstacle in players' journey towards monetization. Therefore, gachas are incentivized to remove these obstacles, and by doing this, turn exploration into a smooth but brain-dead fetch questy activity, just like Wuthering Waves did. So there it is. This is my argument that Arknights Endfield has a better designed world than Wuthering Waves from gameplay perspective, because AKE's actually tries to engage players, while WuWa's is pretty much just an eye candy with separated interactions sprinkled in it. But I will also accept that WuWa is actually better because it balances effort to reward ratio more appropriately for a gacha game. I'm just personally biased towards the fun of discovery, so AKE is more interesting to me. To close the video off, I ask you to remember, size and speed isn't everything. It's what you do, how you move, and where you arrive that matters. Have a nice day, play games, and have fun. Bye.